It is the start of training camp, and we're going to look at the Sharks roster. Start with the forwards, look at the defense and the goalies, and then profile some of the tryouts who are trying to make either the Sharks or the Barracuda. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at Inside the Rink. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Proudly a part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day, and we are now back to 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. New episodes in your ear holes. What more could you want? Well, the best way to make sure you're not missing an episode, make sure you subscribe wherever you get podcasts, or you can follow along on YouTube as well, where the episodes, they do come out first on YouTube. So if you're one of those, you like to get a jump on it, maybe I'm the last thing you see before you go to bed. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. But we're here, guys. Training camp officially starts on Thursday. We're going to spend today kind of just digging through the roster, kind of my expectations for where each player is going to play. And we're going to profile some of the tryout players and, some of these guys who are kind of working or trying to, get signed on by the organization. So before, though, we start looking at the forwards, do want to take a quick break to just take a quick moment to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you guys by Jace Medical. Empower yourself with the purchase of a Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50 and more infections. So get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. All right, so let's start, of course, with the forward group, as we are one to do, and kind of work our way backwards. And we'll go through it, just go through it alphabetically by last name and kind of where I expect each player to play this season. So Ben Allison, one of the tryout players, we'll kind of get into these guys a little bit in the third section, but he's going to be probably fighting for a Barracuda / ECHL type of job for him. Justin Bailey, most likely an AHL job. We'll kind of discuss him a little bit here in a little more. Alexander Barabanov, a lock to make the Sharks roster, right? Easily one of the Sharks' 6 best forwards, and you could make the argument that he might be the 3rd best forward on the team. So Thomas Bordeleau, the 2020 draft pick, going to be fighting for an NHL job. I still think he starts the season with the Barracuda, and then we'll kind of get to play a bunch of NHL games later this season. Ethan Cardwell, the Sharks 2021 draft pick. He's going to make his pro debut this year. Probably Barracuda, potentially playing with the ECHL Wichita Thunder as well. But I think he's going to kind of looking at what we saw with like Ko and Ozzy and some of those guys, probably on the same path as some of those players from last year. Ryan Carpenter, he's going to be fighting for an NHL job as well, but most likely probably going to be in the Andrew Agazzino role for the Barracuda, where kind of being there to help some of the younger guys. And then if you need him to come up and play a couple NHL games, going to come up and play some NHL games for you, just kind of a professional, exactly what you're getting. So Cole Castles, who the Sharks signed this offseason, probably going to be the Barracuda signed AHL, kind of ECHL type of player. Brandon Ko, of course, the 2020 4th round pick. He is going to be on the Barracuda this year. And maybe if he has a good year, we might see him in the NHL at some point this year. So Logan Couture, of course, locked to make the Sharks roster. Probably going to be the second line forward or second line center, excuse me. Anthony Duclair with the Sharks traded for this offseason, locked to make the roster. Going to be, one of the top 6 forwards on the team. William Eklund, of course, fighting for an NHL job, but I think, hoping he will be making the roster and is one of the Sharks' top 6 forwards. Of course, we will talk plenty about William Eklund over the course of training camp and kind of tracking his journey going into training camp. So Felix Gagnon, who is a tryout guy, played pretty well in the rookie tournament. We'll talk about him a little bit more. He will be going back to the queue, but I think he's one of those guys where we'll talk about a little bit more. Sharks so just want to kind of keep an eye on him. So Mikael Granlund locked to make the Sharks roster. We'll talk more about him on tomorrow's episode when we talk about some of the training camp battles. Daniel Gushin, Barracuda, but we'll probably play some NHL games as well this year. Kasper Halttunen, of course, the Sharks' second-round pick in this year's draft. He will be going to the OHL, making his debut with the London Knights. I expect him to hang around in training camp and then head back there basically once training camp starts to wrap up. Joseph Henneberry, another one of the tryout players who we'll talk about here in a little bit, played last season in the queue, and we'll kind of dive into him a little bit more. Tomas Hertl, locked to make the Sharks roster, first line center. We know exactly what Hertl is. So Mike Hoffman, another lock to make the Sharks roster. Probably we'll kind of just dive into him a little bit more, but going to be in that probably mid-6 forward group. But we'll, again, discuss him a little bit more tomorrow. Tanner Kaspick. So he's interesting because if you look on the Sharks like media guide that they give out, he says a free agent, but I think he's also, I'm not sure if he's a tryout or a free agent. So we're going to, until we get the official word that he's been signed, we're going to assume he's a tryout player right now, that he's probably going to be fighting for a, potential. He's probably a fit for the Barracuda this year, but we'll dive into him a little bit more here at the end of the episode. Luke Cunnin, locked to make the roster coming off of his ACL injury. Going to be probably bottom 6 forward. Kevin LeBanc, again, locked to make the roster, fighting bottom 6 forward. Oscar Lindblom, locked to make the roster, but I'm not sure if he's an every night player. But he's a lock to make the roster with his contract. So Connor McCarron, Barracuda guy, signed with the Barracuda, or he's a tryout last year or PTO last year, signed with the Barracuda this offseason. He'll be playing with the Barracuda on an AHL only deal. And then Bradley Merrick, signed with the Barracuda again, same thing. He will be playing with the Barracuda this season as well. Looks pretty good, I thought. I liked what I saw out of him in the rookie faceoff. Probably going to be your third or fourth center for the Barracuda, but he looked like he fit in. So, excuse me, Quentin Musty, of course, the Sharks' second first-round pick in this year's draft. Kind of the same thing with Halttunen, right, where he's probably going to stick around, get a little bit of a taste. Potential. He still hasn't signed his ELC, but potential of him maybe, if he has a really outstanding camp, him sticking around for his first 9 NHL games before heading back, but we will track that, of course. He will be going to Sudbury in the OHL. He's supposed to be very, very good this year. Jacob Peterson this year fighting for an NHL job. Of course, the Sharks acquired him last trade deadline and looks very, very comfortable until last season with both the Barracuda and the Sharks. I still think he starts the season with the Barracuda, but he'll be interesting guy to keep an eye on. Adam Raska, the 2020 7th-round pick from the Sharks. I think he is going to be Barracuda bound again this year. So we'll, did get some NHL games last year, but I still think he's kind of Barracuda bound this year. Tristan Robbins, same thing, Barracuda bound this year, but I think he's going to be one of the top players on the Barracuda, and then we'll probably get some more NHL games at the end of the season. Mitchell Russell, who the Sharks signed last offseason out of the OHL, former teammate of Brandon Coe. Only played 2 games last year because of injury in the ECHL. I think he's going to be fighting for a Barracuda ECHL job. So plenty of stuff to track with him. And then Scott Saborin, who the Sharks signed this offseason, going to be an AHL guy to help out with, another veteran to help out with the Barracuda. Giovanni Smith, the Sharks signed this offseason as well. He's going to be fighting for an NHL job, but I think he ends up back with the Barracuda this year. So that is all. Or sorry, no, one more page of forwards, my bad. Nico Sturm, locked to make the roster. We'll talk more about him a little bit tomorrow when it comes to training camp battles. Nathan Todd, Barracuda guy, again, another veteran player for the Barracuda. Anthony Vincent, another Barracuda player, played last year at the Barracuda, signed a free agency deal this offseason with the Barracuda. Ozzy Weisblatt, again, another Barracuda guy, but I think if he has a good season, we'll probably see him on the Sharks at some point. Philip Sedina locked to make the Sharks roster. One of the more intriguing players where he kind of slots in training camp. And then Fabian Zetterlund, of course, another lock to make the roster that the Sharks acquired with the Timo Meier deal. And then, of course, paid this offseason. So big group of forwards. We'll see where they kind of shake out here. We'll see, especially with the lines, where some of these top guys are paired right away. We'll talk about that tomorrow with some of the training camp battles as well. So before we get into the defensemen and the goalies on this roster, and then of course take a deeper look at some of the tryout guys, do want to take a quick break and talk to you guys about our good friends over at Athletic Greens. And if you are looking for a way to take control of your health, maybe have a little bit better proper nutrition, Athletic Greens is the way to go. I know how hard it is to keep up with nutrition, right? You're stuck at work. You're stuck at your desk a lot, especially like me. You've got that drunk drawer where you just need a snack to get through the day. Why don't you just start your day off the best possible way with the ultimate daily nutritional insurance? With a single scoop of AG1 and a glass of water, you can do just that and absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up with a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him over $100 a day, which just isn't sustainable. So he created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create optimal nutrition on your own, and he did it for just $3 a day. So right now is the time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with a convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of their immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right. The defensemen and goalies. So interesting group here. No tryouts in here. We kind of know the dudes in here, and kind of for the most part, we'll talk about this group a lot tomorrow when we look at our training camp battles. But Matt Benning, of course, the Sharks acquired last offseason, I thought had a pretty solid season for the Sharks. Kyle Burroughs, Sharks signed this offseason to a 3-year deal. Both these guys locked to make their roster, and I think they're going to be playing a lot of minutes for the Sharks. Luca Cagnoni, the 4th-round pick in this year's draft. Same thing with the other rookies. I think he's here to kind of get a taste of it and then go back to Portland, where the Portland Winterhawks are going to be a very fun and exciting team to watch this season. Nick Cicek, I think he's going to be kind of if Burroughs, Benning type of guy gets hurt, I think Cicek might be one of the guys who gets called up, but he will be starting with the Barracuda, I would assume, and then probably if guys get hurt, probably gets pulled up. Mario Ferraro, locked to make the roster. We all know who Mario Ferraro is. Locked to make the roster. So Ethan Frisch, who played with the Barracuda last season on a PTO, and then signed a deal this off season. He's going to be a Barracuda guy. Jake Furlong, who the Sharks acquired drafted last off season. He'll be going back to the queue after training camp this year. And his team, Halifax, also going to be very good as well. Leon Gavanke, who the Sharks traded for this offseason. outside chance he makes the Sharks roster because he can put up points, and the Sharks don't have like a clear defenseman, as we talked about yesterday, clear offensive defenseman. But I still think he probably plays a season with the Barracuda, and then at some point he'll get his shot on the NHL. Artem Gurev, the Sharks draft pick in 2021, he'll be making his pro debut. Interesting to see if they send him to in the ECHL with the Wichita Thunder, because there's a lot of dudes for on the blue line here with the Barracuda. So Roe McKinnell, another guy, former college guy, played last year with the Barracuda and then signed a deal this offseason. Barracuda / ECHL type of player. Nikolai Knizhov, who I think is going to be fighting for an NHL job, did get a nice little contract here, kind of the reward for all of his hard work with his rehab. Still young enough, but I think he's going to be fighting for a job. We'll see. He'll be very interesting to kind of track to see what happens with him. Gannon Larocque, another really intriguing player for at least decision-wise. He is old enough where he can play in with the Barracuda this year. He has said he wants to turn pro, but he can go back to Victoria in the WHL. So we'll see what happens with him if he has an outstanding camp. If the Sharks want to keep him around and let him just play with the Barracuda this season. So, but again, a lot of guys, a lot of the defensive pipeline. There's a lot of names right now. So, Jacob McDonald, fighting for an NHL job. I could see him in the NHL and kind of being the seventh defenseman who's a healthy scratch most nights, or going to play on the Barracuda. So we'll kind of see with him. We'll just dive into these defensemen a little bit more tomorrow. Shakir Mukamadulin, who is, of course, the Sharks acquired from the Timo Meier trade. Barracuda guy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing NHL games by the end of the season, as the Sharks probably want to get a good look at him in the NHL. And looked really, really, really good last weekend at the rookie faceoff. Nikita Ahotek, still working on that one, who, again, Sharks acquired last offseason. Fighting for an NHL job. We'll see. I still think he ends up with the Barracuda just because I think there's a lot of names. But one of those guys who will probably be playing NHL games this year. Valtteri Puli, fighting for an NHL job, but I think he ends up on the Barracuda. Liked what I saw from him out of the rookie faceoff. Jan Bruda, Sharks got in the Erik Karlsson deal, locked to make the roster. Radim Shimmick, fighting for an NHL job. Still think he'll be interesting with like him and McDonald, which one of those guys kind of wins, where those guys kind of fit in. Henry Thrun also fighting for an NHL job, but I think it's just a numbers game, and he'll probably start the season with a Barracuda. And then Mark-Edward Vlasic, absolutely 1,000% locked to make the Sharks because of his contract, and he's Mark-Edward Vlasic. So on to the goalies. Fair amount of goalies. So we have 7 in camp. Mason Beaupit, who the Sharks drafted last year, I think he had a solid game on Monday. Of course, it wasn't like the best, and bright, wasn't the most loaded roster in front of him. A lot of the tryout guys getting a good look there. He'll be back in the WHL this season with whatever the Winnipeg Ice team relocated to. Mackenzie Blackwood, lock. He's probably your starter. Magnus Krona fighting for the backup Barracuda job. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. And Capo Kakinen locked to make the Sharks roster. Eetu Mäkiniemi, if healthy, is a lock to be the starter for the Barracuda, and then kind of your third goalie. So we'll see, because he is apparently still kind of dealing with some of the injuries from last year and isn't 100% healthy. I think he's considered a week to week right now. He is on the ice practicing a little bit, so I think they're going to really monitor his health, and not a good sign that he's not healthy right now. And this guy has struggled with injuries the past couple seasons. So we'll see what the Sharks do. If they maybe try to bring in another veteran goalie, or trade for a veteran goalie, or find somebody who can kind of play that starter for the Barracuda until Mäkiniemi's back, but it's a little worrisome, right? So Georgi Romanov also going to be fighting for the backup spot with Magnus Krona, but I think he probably ends up in the ECHL with the Wichita Thunder. And then Beck Warm, probably kind of the same thing. He's going to be in the mix there, but I think again he ends up maybe with the Wichita Thunder as well. Did play a bunch of ECHL games last year with it, Cincinnati. So that is your roster. That is your Sharks roster as they head into training camp. Of course, it'll get pared down. So just a friendly reminder, 23 players on the Sharks opening night roster, and we have plenty of time to go through all the different iterations of what we think that's going to look like. So there's the roster. So before we get into learning about some of these new tryout guys and, kind of getting into them and looking at where they would potentially fit in, do need to take a quick break and talk to you guys about our good friends over at Birddogs. And if you've listened to Locked On Sharks at any point this summer, you guys know how much I love my Birddogs. They make a stretch khaki shorts that are designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg and give you a more sculpted look. They do the same thing that Lululemon does, but way better. And the anti-stink sweat wicking fabric keeps you cool and dry all day long. They're great for any occasion, right? If you're like me, you've got kids where you're doing, maybe you're out. There's cross-country events now. There's soccer on the weekends. There's a bunch of different stuff. Then you got to, of course, go to Costco and Target and all of the 1,000 different places to go. You have to go. And then maybe you want to hang out and go to the brewery, go hang out with some friends. You need a pair of shorts that covers all of it. That's where Birddogs come in. Absolutely love my Birddogs. I wear them every weekend, all around the house. No matter what I'm doing, I wear my Birddogs because, again, I'm just ready to go with them. So what you want to do is you want to head over to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. Enter the promo code LockedOnNHL at checkout for a free Birddogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL for a free water bottle at checkout. You won't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. All right, so some of the new guys here. We'll just kind of go and we'll go alphabetical order, of course, with these as well. So start with Ben Allison, 21 years old, played in the Q last year, also played a couple games with the Wichita Thunder. So that's kind of where the Sharks maybe got a little bit of an eye on him, but 6'2", 190 pounds. Like I said, played in the Q last season. Very nice season last year. Had 68 games, had 32 goals, 46 assists on 213 shots on goal. And then, like I said, did have a bit of a taste in the ECHL. In 7 games, he had 3 points there as well. So probably going to be one of those, he does earn a contract, probably going to be a AHL only deal where he'll probably bounce between the Wichita Thunder and the Barracuda. But we're taking a flyer on a guy who has been able to put the puck in the net pretty well. So throughout his career, right? He had 32 goals last year, had 20 goals the year before. So, we're taking a shot, right? That's what Mike Greer and company are doing, right? They're taking, kind of turning all the stones, trying to find some diamonds in the rough. So Justin Bailey, 6'4", 215 pounds, played last season with the Bakersfield Condors in the AHL. 20 years old. He with the Condors last year in 58 games had 19 goals, 13 assists, 32 points for the Condors. Also had 42 penalty minutes. I think he is again going to be probably an AHL only type of player. Help add some scoring, some grit. Did have 152 shots on goal. I think he can add some secondary scoring just to help insulate some of the younger players, right? That way, in case your Aussies or your Coes or your Robins, some of those guys, you go through those lulls and the stretches, and just having a guy like Bailey, who's a professional, to kind of help them out night in, night out. So we'll see if he gets an NHL or AHL only deal. So Next guy, Felix Gagnon, 19 years old, 6'0", 175 pounds. Going to be going back to the Q. Was actually, he's was draft eligible last year. I would assume he's probably going to go back to the Q this year. But 62 games, 21 goals, 21 assists, 103 shots on goal. So the shooting percentage is pretty interesting. But this could be one of those players where the Sharks are kind of bringing him in, want to get to know him a little bit better, give him a little bit of a tryout, and then maybe after the Q season's over, then you sign him to a deal. Because he'll have played his fourth season in the Quebec Major Junior League. So 20, really kind of popped off last year, had 42 goals or 42 points. Like I said, the year before he had 20 points in 67 games. Also in the playoffs last year at 8 points in 7 games. So not too bad as well. Another right-handed shot, which the Sharks do need some more right-handed forwards in the pipeline. So just, again, I think it's one of those come in, get used to it, and if we like you, we'll try to sign you at some point. So, or if they could sign him and send him back to the Q. But just want to kind of get to know you. So Joseph Henneberry was actually draft eligible this season. Did not get drafted, of course. 18 years old, 6'2", 185 pounds. Also played in the Q last year. 59 games, had 18 goals, 18 assists, 138 shots on goal. His elite prospect draft guide basically said that his team was awful, but he kind of showed some things that might be a little bit interesting. Very simple game is what they say. He can rush the net, battle for position. He's got an NHL's frame. We'll see what happens with him. He was also suspended for 5 games for abusive language. That's all they said. I don't know if that was towards towards like the ref. I don't know if that's towards a teammate. A little bit of a red flag there, but again, just bringing them in to kind of maybe get to know them a little bit more here, especially with a guy at the age of 18. So again, don't know what he was suspended for. All we know is just that it was abusive language and he was suspended 5 games for it. So, and then Tanner Kaspick. So again, don't know if he's been signed or if he's a tryout. It says free agency. We haven't gotten the official announcement if he has been signed. He's 25 years old, played 6'1", 205 pounds, played with the Iowa Wild last year in the AHL, was a former 4th round pick by the St. Louis Blues in the 2016 draft. And he's not much of a goal scorer. I think he's kind of one of those just hard-nosed, kind of more defensive players. That's kind of his style of play. Again, probably more to help insulate the Barracuda in case some of the younger guys, maybe as a 4th line player for the Barracuda. But last year in 43 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, 28 shots on goal. Like I said, I think he is. I would be shocked to see him on the Sharks, but I'd rather see other younger players than Tanner Kaspick. So we'll see. I'm sure we'll get some sort of announcement with him at some point. So that is it. That is all the Sharks players dive into some of the tryout guys and get to know them a little bit. So we'll be back tomorrow. We're going to look at some of the big roster training camp battles, right? I got to be talking about kind of that 5, 6, 7 spots on the defense. Going to be looking at the 3rd line center. Going to be looking at the top 6 wingers. So plenty of good stuff. Whatever I'm sure we'll get some lines tomorrow after. So we'll kind of course, look at that and see how those affect the training camp battles. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter and Threads at My Fry Hole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.